What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Today we have a great video ahead of us. This is the infamous burned Rolex Datejust. Unfortunately, this watch was absolutely destroyed in an unfortunate house fire. So I'm going to break it down and show you guys step by step how I brought this watch back to life. Crazy enough, I guess some water putting out the fire actually got into the movement. Everything's either rusted, seized, or just completely charred up. Even the date wheel was actually melted. So a lot of these parts are going to have to be replaced or just need a little bit of elbow grease to get them in working order. I actually thought that this movement was done for, but you guys will see in the end. On to my favorite part of the restoration, the cleanup. All the case parts and bracelet, removing all the soot. It's just so satisfying to watch this all go down. So here's a solution I use. It's basically a diluted polish. It's not aggressive enough to actually mar the surface. However, it has enough bite to cut through that little bit of rust without marring or deteriorating the finishes on all the bridges. Basically, we want to be very, very gentle. And as you can see, all the movement parts cleaned up. I was super happy about this. These things would be impossible to replace, including the main plate, date carrier, most of the bridges. Now, the main parts of the watch, they also cleaned up beautifully. Look at that original finish shining through. And I mean, just look at all the soot that was left behind. Give everything a quick once over, and this is looking great. Now, using only the finest Swiss watch products. These are original OEM parts that all came new out of the blister. Don't ask me where I got them, but let's jump into the rebuild. So before anyone starts coming at me in the comments saying, Peter, you're not using any oils putting this thing back together, what's going on with that? This is actually the first rebuild. I'm making sure all the parts I'm replacing, as well as the parts that I salvaged, are good and everything is functioning properly. So don't worry about that, guys. This entire movement was cleaned piece by piece, screw by screw, and the proper lubrication was added where necessary. So now I'm just throwing in the escape wheel and the train wheels. Here's a fun fact to you guys. As per the Rolex service bulletin, the complete barrel, mainspring, and arbor unit is actually no longer a serviceable part. They actually want you to throw away the existing unit and replace it with one fresh out of the blister. I mean, I just did it because the previous mainspring was completely wrecked by the water. So, sounds pretty wasteful. However, it's just what they want done now. Putting on the train wheel bridge here, making sure that all the wheels are sitting in the respective jewels, everything's moving freely before we get this tightened down. One thing I absolutely hate is when I see watches come in and the movements are all beat up and scratched up. I find this super unnecessary. Guys, just take the extra time, make sure that the screwdriver is sitting in the head of the screw, it doesn't skip out and scratch the bridges. I mean, Rolex movements are actually finished very nicely. No reason to scratch them up and ruin the finishes. I don't know, guys. Call me crazy, but it's just one of those things, you know. I treat my watches like I treat my cars. I hate seeing scratches on my cars, so it's only right that I don't want to see scratches on my movement, right? I know you never see your movement on your Rolex. However, if this was my personal piece, I don't want to know that there are scratches there. That would just kill me, especially a watch this new. I mean, look at the ratchet wheel here, right? Let's take a second and actually appreciate the finish, the sunburst effect that it has on it. I mean, it's just great. It's a great looking piece. Putting the click spring back in now. We're getting very, very close here, guys. Can't tell you guys how many people told me this watch couldn't be saved. I mean, even Rolex themselves declined the service on it, right? A lot of the original movement parts were able to be salvaged, tested for functionality, of course, but you guys are going to see some things that look a little bit tarnished, right? Train wheels are moving, escape wheels moving freely. Now I can finally tighten down this bridge. Now we're putting in the pallet fork. Always make sure that you test the pallet fork. Make sure it's actually engaging the escape wheel before putting on the balance. It's the number one thing you could do. These things are very small, very finicky. So now we have the movement flipped over. We're going to work on the calendar works here. This is actually the date wheel mounted. So this entire assembly is actually a removable part from this main plate. So the 3235 caliber is actually very quickly, it became one of my favorite calibers to work on. Super simple, super straightforward, and I see this movement sticking around for a very long time in the Rolex lineup. This movement is utilized in Datejust 36s, the 41 millimeters, the the Submariners, Yachtmasters, you name it, it's in there, guys. This is a great movement, same as a 3135. It's going to be their workhorse piece. So once again, guys, you will actually notice this piece was salvaged from the original movement. Now, I know it has some tarnish on it, what looks like rust, but it's not. This piece is fully cleaned up, and as you can see, it's functioning flawlessly. So a lot of these parts were salvageable. Initially, when I took the whole thing apart, I didn't think anything was savable, but to my surprise, a lot of these pieces were. So we're putting the final two wheels in now, and then we get the row on the date carrier plate. Everything's working flawlessly, and boom, the date disc spins around. So the quick set function is working. Now that's great. We could put these blued screws in, and these are actually the only blued screws on a Rolex movement. Now, when I tighten these down, you want to make sure you're tightening them like your car wheel, right? Go in a side-to-side pattern, making sure that this plate is going down smooth and it'll sit flush. This will eliminate any problems with the intermediate date wheel skipping around and not actually engaging the date disc properly. Because once isn't enough, we're checking for functionality again. Last part of the puzzle is about to go in, and boom. This movement is fully working. It kicked right on with just a little bit of air. Guys, I can't tell you how much time and energy actually went into this movement, and I'm super happy that this thing was fully salvageable. Everything is setting, working, winding properly, and now we have a running 3235. So now we know everything's working. I'm going to put back together the auto wind module, or automatic works. Guys, here's actually another fun fact. Rolex used to utilize a standard clip that would actually secure the rotor to the automatic device. Now, this is a triangular shaped screw head now. You guys will see that in a second. I'm just putting this back on the movement. Once again, you want to make sure that all the wheels are engaging, right? So you want to wind it up a few times before actually screwing it down, making sure everything is fully engaged and the automatic device is actually going to do its job. The final screws are being turned, and now we could set this ball bearing rotor and take a look at that screw that secures it. It actually has a triangular shaped head. You need to have the specific shape screwdriver, but once that's all tightened down, everything's working flawlessly. Super happy I can get this done for this client. Very unfortunate situation. But guys, check in next week for the final video of this watch polished up, put back together, and on its way home. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe.